Good morning and welcome to Brewing Happiness. And today is a great day. I'm happy to be back, from vacation, settling in back into real life, into routine. And I got to thinking about getting back to creating. I thought I was going to do a lot of creating on my vacation, and I had plans to write poetry and paint and do all kinds of things. I did one really great creative project. I did an art piece while I was there. My little representative of the mount, my little representation of the mountain. And it was fun. I took driftwood, pen nailed it all together, did a little painting. Very fun. But the truth is, while I had okay, I'm going to show you a picture of my here because now I learned to share, and now I love to share my screen. Right? Yeah, that's what I did. This is not a great picture, but you can see just a little picture of putting some driftwood together and painting it. I put some sticks on it to represent the crazy roads we drove, and painted some things to represent the lakes that we visited. Just a lot of goofiness, right? Left it there at the resort for them to enjoy. Anyway, I guess the point I wanted to make, though, is that I did a lot more consuming than I did creating. My plan was to do a lot of creating on my vacation, and that just didn't work out that way. It's okay. I'm not complaining. I'm not even feeling bad about it, but it just led me to the observation to start thinking about, as you start thinking about how you spend your time and time management and how we get to all the things in our lives that we want to do. For me, I know that's a real problem for me. My list of I want tos is far longer than my I have time for. So I took all kinds of art supplies with me, like I said, with the intention to create, but it was such a beautiful, relaxing time. I ended up not doing as much creating as I wanted to. Again, this leads me to thinking about how we spend our time in two ways. I'm a little bit babbling this morning because I'm not that prepared, but that's all right. It's just me and the camera. Anyway, consuming versus creating is the conversation that I'm having with myself, is the discussion or the thought centers that are coming to me at this time. I mean, let's talk about we need both, right? There's time in our life, and I think I just proved that with this weekend or this week of vacation. There's time to do both, or there are times appropriate for both, but we need to be aware of which side of that coin we are on, right? So consuming is recharging. Sitting around watching Netflix, you're consuming. Checking your phone to see if you got messages, you're consuming, right? Order takeout, right? Consuming. Get on the web, surf around, you're consuming. So that's okay. That's how we spend our life. But that's not the same as, good morning, Debbie. Not the same as creating. Consuming is when, think of it this way, how much time do you spend using things other people made versus making something that doesn't exist today? That's one of the ways to think about it, right? And like I said, consuming is so much, is important. We need to recharge. We need to relax. Sometimes, in fact, in the Western society today, consuming is kind of our default position, right? We're busy. We're busy people. We got families, we got jobs, we got responsibilities. We're always going somewhere. There's always an errand to be run. There's always a chore to be taken care of. There's always something that needs to be done. And so we are constantly doing, which feels like creating, right? Because even though maybe, well, Think about it. You're at work. How much creating do we think we're creating at work? We're making things happen, but sometimes, how much input do you have? That's really the measure, isn't it? How much input do you, if you're running someone else's program, you might be somewhere in the middle of consuming and creating, but we want to be aware of this, right? So in our lives, if you have a busy life, if your job requires a lot of you, you got a family, you're going all the time. The time to create, or the energy to create, might not be as available or as close to your fingertips as our, like I said, default need to consume. So when we finally let down, finally step away from go, do, and it's time to be, well, we do kind of choose consuming versus creating, because it requires less of us, right? When you consume, like I said, someone else has done the work of creating. And this is a yin and yang proposition. Why bother to create if there's not consumers of your product, right? That's the whole point of creating, to make life easier, life better, life more beautiful. But consuming has its place too. So with that said, it seems that, like I said, we have chosen, or we as a people seem to we seem to have the default position. We go straight to consuming. When you get a few minutes to yourself, what do? Who has the energy to create, right? So we go to consume. We flip on the Netflix. We watch the YouTube. We check our phone. We surf the Facebook. We do things that there's so many entertainments and distractions and diversions and consuming opportunities available to us every day. It's almost difficult not to fall into that pattern. It's almost impossible not to take advantage of those things. Yesterday we talked about books and the ancient days when information was so rare and so precious and required so much to attain, as opposed to today's world, where more information than you need, than you want, than you can possibly understand and consume is available at your fingertips 24/7, no matter what. So we're living a different life these days. And like I said, we default to consuming. And that's okay. That's all right. Consuming is necessary. It's recharging. It's sometimes it's so happy to have something. Sometimes you're so happy to not have anything required of you, that all you really have to do is sit and absorb. That's relieving. It's relaxing. And sometimes it's all the energy we have left at the end of the day, right? But then there's creating. Life is about creation. And I'm talking about creating anything, not creating. I'm not talking about you have to create a masterpiece, piece of art, right? What's creating? Creating a meal, creating a clean house, creating a happy family, creating a well-adjusted children. Those are all parts of creating. Anytime we are putting ourselves into it, we are having input. We are making things different. Maybe we didn't create it from scratch. Maybe we took something that existed and made it better. All part of creating, right? Creativity is what is it? The use of our imaginations, our original ideas. It's the process of making something that does not yet exist, or would not exist if it were not for you bringing that vision in your brain out into the world. It's something new, something useful, something beautiful. Creativity, that's our power. It's a power, the power to create. The power to create something brand new is within every single one of us. And our inclinations, our talents, our ideas, the experiences are going to lead us to all create something different. But creating is what we do. Creating is one of the pillars that sets us apart as human beings, right? Is to create something for the sheer delight of creating. So, we have a creative impulse. we know it's hardwired into us, this creative impulse, this creative genius. Everyone has it. This is not creative genius. Let's be really clear. Creative genius is not limited to the well-known artists of the world, right? It is not the purview of only rock stars and high fashion and high fine art. It is inside of each one of us. Everybody has talent. Everybody got something special. Everybody got something that they do better than everybody else. Part of life is just trying to find it. Hopefully you love it. Hopefully that there's the coordination of what you love doing and what you're good at doing. Or maybe you're not good at something and you love it, so you have to work hard to be good at it. That's all right. It's within us to be compelled to create new. It's a feature of the human experience, right? And creativity allows us to be innovative. Creativity is what we use every day. You're using creativity every day, whether you're creating a piece of art or not, right? But anytime you got to solve a problem, you got to come up with a good answer. You have to write out some thoughts and to present some thoughts. Creativity is what you are leaning on. It broadens your perspective, right? Creativity pushes your thoughts into new areas and new ways of thinking in your head. So it expands your own mind, expands your own thinking, expands your opportunities, expands your vision, right? You don't even know everything that's in there lying, waiting to just unfold as a creative thought in your head. The truth is we live such busy lives, and we're so caught up in the stress and the moment to moment get her done society, right? Where, like I said, there's always another chore, there's always another errand, there's always something that we need to think about that we should be doing, right? That thinking, that mindset, that constant forward motion does not leave space for creativity. Creativity requires a little relaxation, a little calm, maybe a little boredom. I think of it as every brain's all filled up, but you got to leave a little space. And in that little space, that's where creativity grows. So, how do we use our brains when we create? We have the areas of creativity. There's 3 areas in our brain that we use for creativity. This is fascinating. So we have the executive action network, or they might call it the central executive network. And this is how we pay attention, right? This is how we focus, how we pay attention. This is just executive functioning, thinking, making decisions. It involves this part of our brain is communicating with the outer regions, the nether regions of the prefrontal cortex. This executive network is communicating with the prefrontal cortex, where all this action is happening. Prefrontal cortex, like I said, this is where you make decisions. This is where we understand complex behavior. Also in here, you have working inside your executive network, your parietal lobe. It's kind of in the back here, in the back of this area. Decision making. I'm sorry, parietal lobe, which is spatial sensory information. It's touch, navigation. So we are an amazing. Our brains are amazing things that are constantly. All these things are happening at one time. We're not even 100%. We're not even aware of these things, but they're happening in split seconds. So we have the executive network where we're paying attention to complex thoughts. We're making basic decisions. We're navigating life is what we touch and what we see, navigating through the day, right? But our attention spans are incredibly short. So what happens is we're constantly firing back and forth between the executive network and the imagination network, or sometimes they might call it the default mode network. Now, this is the part of the brain where we do brainstorming, where we daydream, right? Where we have creative thought, where we indulge in thoughts that are not about what do I need to get done, but what can I make that doesn't exist, right? This is social cognition. This is the part of the brain where we understand how other people feel, because creativity is tied to emotions, to our perceptions of the world, right? This part of the brain, the default section, the imagination network, is communicating with the prefrontal cortex and the parietal lobes, and it is not one or the other. It is not I have very creative thoughts or I have good thinking skills. It takes both. It takes the creative thought and then the thinking skills to say, well, how would I do that? Well, here's an idea. Well, how would I do that? And so you're constantly lobbing that ball back and forth between these two areas of your brain. We used to think in terms of right brain, left brain, right? The left brain is the part of the brain where we're analytic and we think and we solve problems. The right brain, we're creative. This is where emotions live. This is where we're these non is where we get past the physicalness of life and into the ethereal, right? And now we're kind of beginning to understand, as far as brain functioning goes, it's not really that simple. There really isn't a left brain or right brain function. It's the brain throwing things back and forth between those two areas. The executive function, no nonsense, get her done, take care of business. What's going on around me? Let me analyze for danger and for opportunity, versus the what can I create, what doesn't exist, how can I use these things differently, how can I make something beautiful, how can I make something useful, how can I make this useful thing more beautiful. And it's actually the back and forth ping pong, throwing the ball back and forth between these two areas, that is the crux of creativity. Who knew? They talk to each other across the prefrontal cortex, right? Both of these networks are existing across the prefrontal cortex, and it's inside of this area of the brain where we actually see the two bump up and talk to each other. For my very layman explanation of how our brains work. But I said there were three areas. So the third one is very interesting too, the salience network. All right. This is the area where this is our thinking. This is the stream of consciousness, right? This monitors the internal stream of consciousness. It's monitoring external stimuli and events. It's making decisions about which information that's coming at us, whether it's external or internal, whether it's our thoughts or our senses. This is the part of our brain that's telling us, well, let's just face it, we're hit by so much sensory input all day long. Between the chatter inside and the commotion going on outside, we are bombarded with a bazillion inputs every day. The salience network, this is the part of your brain that does a real quick analysis that tells you what's important. Of the bazillion things hitting you each moment, what do I need to pay attention to right now? And it also helps in, so this part is helping us do the switching, right? This part of the brain is actually facilitating the switching of between the executive function and the imagination network. The salience network sifts through the enormous inputs and tells us what to pay attention to. I thought it was interesting how our brain works, how there's so much going on with creativity. And maybe this is why we avoid creating sometimes. It's energetic. It does require some effort and energy and thought process. It can be scary because these thoughts can send you places that you've never been or that no one has ever been. You come up with an idea. Wait, hold on, please. I was on the mountain, and there was all this wood around me. Everywhere you went, there was wood, pieces of wood laying around. I'm going to say this was a little bit of a close encounters of the third kind moment for me. When I'd been walking, I'm a compulsive wood picker-upper. I carry a bucket or a basket with me wherever I go, just because who knows when you're going to see some interesting piece of wood or something interesting that you want to keep. So I picked up wood. We've been walking in the woods, and I had a picnic table covered with my pieces, and I just had this vision. I had this vision of what I was going to do with these pieces of driftwood. And I learned to use a brad nailer, which is just a fun little tool that you just, and a little tiny brad, a little tiny piece of metal holds the two things together. So I didn't even have to deal with glue too much. So anyway, Close Encounters. I felt this need to put this together. I felt compelled to make this vision that was in my head become reality. And look at it. I don't know if you can even see it. Let's see if we can get a better picture of it. It's goofy. It's driftwood stuck together with some pieces of tree in it, and I made a few little signs. It's just silly. But let's see. How do I do that? Okay, come back to me. But creativity, right? Sometimes is not just the idea, but the urge to make it become reality. So the interesting thing is studies show a very strong correlation between creativity and happiness. Why are we talking about creativity? Not just because I love it, not just because the world needs more art, all true. Not just because it makes, not just because it's good for your thinking skills, all true, but because it's good for you. It makes you happy. Multiple studies show strong correlation between creativity, art, well-being, and happiness, right? The British Journal of Clinical Psychology published a study, showed those involved in art-oriented activities. Now, you don't even, this is just being around art, but art-oriented activities, that's like, we're going to assume that's making some art. Wow. Had a boost in positive emotions, reduction in negative emotions. How happy is Dad down in the basement working on his birdhouses? You know anybody that just gets lost in their own little world of their own little creative world, and that's where they go whenever they got a spare moment, striving to be that person, right? University of Otago, I'm not even sure what that is, showed that those who had creative pursuits, those who had a creative pursuit in their life, showed more positive feelings in general, which drove more creative pursuits. That's right. What do we have here? We call it we're not the vicious cycle. We're back to the victorious cycle. We're happy, so we feel like creating. We create something and it makes us happy. So we're happy, so we feel like creating. That's the cycle of life, the cycle of happiness. Now, Drexel University found when people did more art, and we're just talking even doodling, right? Coloring in a coloring book. We're not talking about you got to go out and become Michelangelo. No, we're talking about you get you one of those adult coloring books and some colored pencils. Or even simpler, you take your pencil and you doodle on the side of your notebook, right? People involved in these kinds of activities showed in brain studies a boost in pleasure pathways, right? We like it. Additional blood flow to the brain, to the reward centers, make you feel happier. And it actually makes you feel more confident about your art. The more you do it, the more confident you are about it. Here's my doodle. This is what I did, right? The more confident you feel about it. And again, the happier you are about your art, the more increase you have. There's an increase in your desire to make more art. That's right. So this is true. They found out this was true for both artists and non-artists, not just for artists. This is good for everybody. One factor that links creativity and happiness is empathy. Empathy for others. When we focus on applying our talents to help others, it makes us happy. And then, but it's also true that once our empathy is enhanced, that once we have more empathy, again, the victorious cycle, we feel more like art. We're more creative. We have more creative thoughts. We are connecting with others when we create art. In your heart, when you create art, it's not just for you. It's something you want to share. So you are engaging in empathy, connecting with others, even if you're just doodling on your page. So how do you get to be more creative? Everybody wants to be more creative. How do you do it? Well, number one, unplug and get bored. That's right. Find you some time and some space. Creativity leaps from space. There's no space for creativity when your brain is full all the time. Don't you love my visual brain? And then when you make some boredom, you make a little space and a little room for something new. right? A bored mind is searching for stimulation. And so where do you go? It creates its own entertainment, and there is, when none is offered, your brain will be happy to accept any entertainment. Let's go back to consuming. Turn on the Netflix, the brain is happy to sit back and absorb. We're all lazy, right? But without that input, in a situation where kind of looking around, what am I gonna do with myself? Appreciating this great day, but what's next? Your brain fills in the gaps. That's where creativity comes from, because your brain will entertain itself. And in doing so, you might be really surprised with the fantastic ideas you come up with. Daydreaming, ideas, plans, right? Another way to help improve creativity is to get physical. Studies show over and over that physical exercise increases the blood flow and the oxygen to your brain, sharpens your mental clarity. Movement itself, body movement, moves us. It's just a fact. Moves us out of our analytic, survival, flight or fight self to our objective, to our subjective, relaxed, creative state, right? To our creative self. You want to get creative? Just doodle. Don't think, don't plan. Just pick up a pencil and start letting it take itself where it wants to go. You don't even have to have a plan of what you're going to draw. Just put the pencil in your hand and start moving it. It'll take over. Trust me, your brain will take over. Your hand will start making things. The doodles will start turning into things, because your subconscious mind will go, oh, here's something to do. And it'll jump into gear, and it'll send messages that'll, maybe even unbeknownst to you, travel down to the end of your arm, to the end of your pencil, and pictures will start, or things will start coming out of it. Works for me. Make it a judgment-free zone. Make sure when you sit down to do this creativity that your little inner critic, I'm not a very good artist. I really can't draw. I don't really like the pictures I draw don't look like what I want. Stop it, right? This is a time for expression and acceptance, and everything flies. There are no bad ideas. Creativity is the beginning process where we just kind of want to do a little brain dump, get some of those extra neurons, extra thought processes that are going on in there, creating new things. We're creating all the time. I don't care what you say. We're all creating all the time. It's just pushed down in the back of our brain. Quiet, calm, peace, exercise, outdoors. Lets it come forward and be seen, be heard. You're not trying to sell art here, right? You're not trying to create a masterpiece. You're just trying to change perspective, get things flowing, get access to some thoughts that maybe you're blocked by the get stuff done part of the brain that tends to take over, right? Let go of it. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to your output. Don't even worry about what's coming out, right? We're just trying to get some creative juices flowing here. Be kind. There are no bad ideas. Let go of expectations. Free your minds to go to new places, new ideas, new thoughts. And then the final thought is go in nature. Go out in nature. Nothing that's inspiring you more than nature. All right? Moments of wonder. They say if you want to be inspired to create something, find a moment of wonder, right? A study at the University of California found awe-inspiring experiences caused the release of proteins called cytokines, which have positive effects on happiness, well-being, and creativity. I can't help it. It's science. It's a fact. Take in a sunset. Appreciate a flower, right? Find a wildflower. Lose yourself in your favorite music. Dance. Inspire yourself to create your own happiness. Well, that's all I got for today. So thanks for watching. I'm happy to be back. Until tomorrow, make it a happy day.